Chronicles of the Grim Reaper, Before the Dawn, by Griz Calderon. The garden smelled of rosemary and damp soil. Moonlight pressed cold light across the leaves, illuminating the worn path where Sabine had collapsed. Her eyes fluttered open. The world came in fragments. Blur, then sharpness, then blur again. Her breath was shallow, her chest heavy, and her veins burned as though fire itself had been poured into them. She tried to move, but her limbs trembled, unfamiliar and foreign. Through the haze, she saw him. A towering figure cloaked in black, the sweep of his robe stirring in a wind that had not been there before. The scythe in his hand caught the faint light, its curve glinting like lightning trapped in steel. For a moment, she thought she was gone, that death had taken her. But she still breathed, still felt the pain. The reflection of the blade caught her eyes, a sudden glimmer that made her flinch. Pain surged through her already burning veins, and she turned her face away with a gasp. The sensation faded as quickly as it came, leaving only confusion and fear. Then she remembered a shadow vanishing between the trees. Red eyes, teeth like knives, the taste of her own blood in her throat. And she remembered darkness. Sabine did not rise until the moon dipped low. She staggered across the garden, clutching at roots she had tended only yesterday. Each step felt wrong, her body both frail and unyielding. At the cellar door, instinct pulled her down into the dark. She hid there until the pale light of dawn crept across the cracks above. Her skin tingled where it touched her face. When she emerged again, the Reaper was still there, standing at the edge of her garden, waiting. Hunger hollowed her. She tried bread, dried berries, water from the well. All turned to ash in her mouth, her body rejecting what had once sustained it. Her hands trembled as she lit a candle. The flame's glow stabbed her eyes, sharp and unnatural. She hissed and snuffed it out, retreating into shadow with tears streaking her cheeks. The hunger clawed deeper. She fought it until her knees gave out beside the snare line at the garden's edge. A rabbit lay limp within. She cradled it, shame pressing against her chest. When its blood touched her lips, the ache eased, just slightly. Revulsion racked her. But she drank, and afterward, she wept. Her pulse shifted unnaturally, racing, then slowing to nothing at all before jolting alive again. She pressed trembling fingers to her throat, counting heartbeats, whispering prayers to herself. Her senses had changed. She could hear the scrape of beetles beneath bark, the heartbeats of birds in the rafters. The smell of iron in the soil overwhelmed her. The darkness of her cellar no longer blinded her. She moved within it easily, as if the shadows were her own. She began to test herself like she would a patient, recording her condition in memory, comparing it to fevers she had treated, to old curses she had read about in borrowed pages. This was none of them. This was something else. Sabine grew cautious of dawn. She nailed hides across the cellar door, blocking even the faintest sliver of light. Still, once she dared to lift the covering just enough to let a thread of sun in. It burned instantly. Her skin blistered, smoke rising from her hand before she yanked it back with a scream. She collapsed in the cellar, clutching her arm, rocking herself like a fevered child. The pain dulled, but never fully left. And still, the hunger deepened. Each dawn, the Reaper stood in her garden, scythe glimmering faintly as the sky brightened. He never entered, never spoke. He only waited. For her end. For her soul. But she did not die. Night after night, she endured. He came quietly, though the night always seemed to tremble when he passed. At first, he lingered only at the edge of her land, a shadow among shadows. He watched Sabine stumble, hide, test herself, feed. He should have left her. For a moment, he even thought of keeping her. Another like him, a companion, someone who might understand. But then he saw the hunger shaping her into something else. He saw her crouched over a deer, lips red, her body trembling with the same relief and horror he once knew. He saw her eyes when she stalked a traveler in the night, her movements too sharp, too certain. And he remembered the reaper's voice, low and heavy as thunder. "You don't know what you're doing to them. There will be consequences. There always are." He stepped from the shadows one night as she returned to her garden. Her eyes widened, recognition flickered. She parted her lips, some question trembling there. But he was already upon her. His hand closed around her throat. She struggled, clawed, tried to speak, but he was faster, stronger, relentless. He drank until she fell limp in his arms. For the first time since his own turning, he felt something colder than thirst. Shame. The reaper descended with the wind. His scythe glimmered, not with light, but with inevitability. He reached for Sabine, and this time her soul rose, faint, flickering, but free at last. She whispered into the air as her essence lifted. "I almost had the answer." The reaper's gaze turned to Valen. No face was visible, but the weight of his fury filled the night. "You see now. You make them in your image, and they will suffer as you do. You cannot bind them. You can only destroy them. And still you endure." Valen said nothing. He lowered her body into the soil she had once tended, covering her herbs with the blood she could no longer use. He stood in silence long after the reaper was gone. At last, he understood. He would not make these creatures. He would not share his curse. Every survivor he had left behind, every victim he had let crawl away, he would hunt. He would kill them himself, to erase what he had unleashed. It did not absolve him. It did not free him. But it was all he could do. And when the night closed around him once more, Valen vanished into the darkness, carrying with him both the hunger and the shame, while the reaper waited, as he always did, to collect when the end came. The end.